Hello, I did promise to do a tutorial on the cute little coin purses. I'm having a little bit of a coin purse marathon as I have a craft fair coming up and I need a few bits and bobs to put on the craft fair. Okay, so what we need is 2 pieces of top fabric, 2 pieces of inner fabric, a zip, and a little piece that I've just folded in half, folded half again and top stitched. That's going to create the little loop for us to put a little ring through. The fabric I've cut is 6 inches wide by 5 inches down. You can make this any size you like, bigger, smaller. I wouldn't go much smaller, it is hard to sew when they get really, really dinky. My zips, as usual, is zip on roll, so I cut my zips larger than my actual fabric, so I'm not having to move the zipper backwards and forwards. As always, I'm using my butterick. It's the EB6100, and if we turn you around a little bit, pop you down so you can see what I'm doing. On the butterick, excuse me, we've chosen stitch 0, which is a straight stitch, on the default settings. So it's 3 for the length and 3.5 for the width. The width on a straight stitch is just where the needle moves to. So that means the needle is centralised. Excuse me again. You'll need a zipper foot and your standard foot. Just put the standard foot to one side for the moment. And we'll place the zipper foot on, because the first thing we're going to do is pop the zip into the bag itself. As we done last time for the cushion, we take your outside fabric, right side, your zip, where the zip is, remember that's the right side, so right sides together. I'll just turn that zip around because it's easier for me to do it that way. At this stage you can tack, don't pin. Remember, pins actually don't put your zip in straight, so you can hand tack if you wish, or a stick glue, the one you use for paper piecing. You could do that just to hold your fabric there if you wish. What I'm going to do, just to speed things up, is I'm going to do the outer and the lining both at the same time. It's easy enough to do once you've had some practice. You just line your fabrics up with the zip and themselves. That would have been good if I sewed it that way, it was the wrong way around. Place it under the foot. Remember to use the foot as your guide. The foot will run nicely along the zip. Needle down, a couple of back stitches to lock, and off we go. And needle up and work out. I've actually just threaded the machine because my spool ran out, and it looks like I misthreaded. That looks like the spool hasn't caught when I've put it round. It hasn't. See if you can see this. It's quite hard to see. You see how it's looped? That means that the tension underneath wasn't quite right because it came onto the top. If it had looks pretty okay underneath. If it had been underneath where it was looping, that meant the tension at the top of your machine would have been wrong. So we'll quickly just snip that out. And run back over it again just to pop them stitches in correctly. Needle down and back stitch. Just lining my fabrics up couple of back stitches, needle up and work out the machine. Okay, so when we open it up, your outer fabric is at the right side of your zip. If we just pull this back, or you could go and press it if you wish, but I'll just, on fabric this lightweight, I just pull it back and quickly top stitch using my foot edge as a guide. Just quickly trim my threads. So that's one side done. Now we'll do the other side in exactly the same way, but we're having to line our fabrics up together. So if you can see just there, we need to slide the fabric up so it meets the other fabric at the other side. Same with the lining fabric. If you're new to zips, you know, do one fabric at a time. It looks like I've caught in the machine. The butterick will always tell you when something's going wrong. What happened there was that the thread had just looped underneath and double looped on itself. There we go. And off we go again. If you are using a zip on the roll, a longer zip like I do, just be wary that the zipper part, when you're sewing, can catch on your metal, and we don't want it pulling off because then you've got to try and re-zip it again. And again, we're just going to top stitch the other side, so needle down, a couple of back stitches. Make sure my fabrics are flat, and off we go. And needle up and work out. Okay, I'm just going to take a moment to trim off these threads. Okay, so we have the little piece I was on about. We need to fold that in half. I always make it a bit generous. It's easier to handle, much easier to handle. Okay, decide where you want your little tab to come out. I want it fairly near the top. So the loop part, face it in towards your bag and lay it on. What I'm going to do, I've pulled the lining fabric out of the way and I'm just going to pop a couple of tack stitches in. We just need to quickly change the foot because we no longer need the zipper foot, and pop on our general foot. Slide that under. As I say, make sure that your lining fabric is out of the way. Go within your seam allowance and quickly just put a few stitches in. It holds it in place and saves it slipping when you're doing the final put together. You know where it's going to be placed. That's it. Leave that bit sticking out the end because then we can see it as we're sewing and we know just to go slower because we've got layers of fabric. Right, very important, open the zip. If you don't open the zip at this stage, we're not going to be able to turn it once we've sewn the bag together itself. Take right sides of the outer lining and put them together. The lining itself will drop into place. You can pop a couple of pins in if you wish at this stage just to hold the fabrics together. I normally don't do this, but just to show you what you can do. And when we're sewing, we want the zip to pull down towards the lining so that everything lines up nicely, and the same on the other side. And there is a reason I put the pins in one side and then flipped it and put the pins in the other side, because that's the way we're going to sew. We're going to start at the top of your fabric, so that's on your main fabric, your outside fabric, and sew down this way, leaving a gap at the bottom. Then we're going to flip it over and do the same again. Sew down and leave a gap at the bottom. The reason I do that is because then you can push your zip the right way and your stitches go over the zip the other way. If you try and sew round in one, you'll find that one part of your zip might pucker up that way and the other one go down, and it doesn't give a good look to the finished item. Okay, so starting on this side, I start about middle, doesn't matter. Again, I'm using the plastic bit on the general foot that comes with the butterick as a guide. So where the plastic is, I'm lining that bit up just before it hits the metal with the edge of the fabric. You make your seam allowances what you're comfortable with. As long as they're all the same, it will turn out fine. Just make sure my needle's in the down position. When we come to the corner, the needle will stay down because we've popped it in down position. Turn your work and just take a moment to make sure everything is lined up. Take out your top pin. You don't really want to be sewing over pins in case your needle breaks. Nice and slow across that little loop and the zip. Pop that second pin out. Down to the bottom corner. And stop. Your needle will stop in the down position. And along about 1.5 inches I'm using, and put a couple of back stitches in to lock that off, because there is going to be pressure on that seam when we're turning the work inside out, or right side out, as it may be. Okay, as I said, I flip my work over now, just trim off them couple of threads, and I've picked up a random yellow thread from somewhere, probably off what I was sewing this morning, and start about middle again. Make sure you're going over the stitching that you've already done. Needle in the down position, a few back stitches, and sew to the corner. When you get to the corner, the needle will be in the down position. Turn your work and take a moment just to line everything up. As I say, make sure the zip goes towards the lining. Okay, so we're folding it. See if I can pop it up so you can see. Towards the lining. Take that top pin out. Quickly sew down. Come into the zips, slow it down. There we go. Take that bottom pin out because we don't need it anymore. Inch and a half-ish in, couple of back stitches, needle up, and we went all the way around the outside. Okay, quickly trim off the corners so that when we turn it round the right way, we've got nice corners. And we need to trim off the zip and a little bit off our tab. What I found with the zip is if you try and trim it as close as possible, not on the line, maybe about 1/8 of an inch away from the sew line, when you turn it the other way, your zip will pop up and won't sort of pucker into the side seam. And if you want to, you can go back over that and put a couple more stitches in if you want to make it feel a bit more secure. Okay, now for the fun part. Okay, I'm using my finger through the little hole we've got in the lining to push out the corners of the purse itself. Okay, I'm liking how that looked. All my seams have caught, so now what we need to do is close up the little hole that's in the bottom of the lining. Pop the corners out wrong way. And the reason for that is if then you grab a hold of your corners, sort of snap, your seams will fall in. Finger press. And at this stage, if you want, you can hand sew. I just go across on my machine. I start off the fabric. And slowly come onto my fabric, very close to the edge. Long I go, and then off the fabric again. And these little bags, I make out of scrappies, so bits of fabric I've got left off other projects. This fabric was from a bigger bag, so it's perfect for what I'm doing, which is a few for a craft fair. And because they're scrappies, they really haven't cost me that much. So they're pocket money. You know, kids can come along and buy them for a couple of pounds here and there and feel really good about themselves because they're getting themselves something that's handmade. Just popping the little ring on. And there we go. Cute little purse in next to no time at all. As I say, with the zips, practice and you'll be able to pop them in like I did with both the lining and the outer fabric at the same time. Hope you enjoyed today's video and happy sewing. Please remember, just down below, press like and subscribe. Thank you.